Welcome to the Leadership Upgrade Podcast. I'm Dr. Kevin. In this podcast, we explore what it truly takes to become the kind of leader that people trust, respect, and want to follow. If you're a high achieving entrepreneur or executive and you want to upgrade your leadership from the inside out, this is the place for you. So welcome. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes where we dive deep into conscious leadership, personal mastery, and building organizations that thrive. And if you want a full blueprint for upgrading your leadership, check out my new book, Lead Yourself First, the High Achiever's Guide to Upgrade Your Leadership. Grab a copy today by visiting upgradeyourleadership.com. Join the movement and upgrade your leadership. Now, let's get down to today's episode. Welcome back to the Leadership Upgrade, episode 2. Today, we're talking about the hidden operating system of leaders. You know, the real theme around this is to recognize that there is a particular method of understanding that operating system. It's our beliefs. When we talk about our beliefs, it's more than just some worldview, right? The beliefs really encapsulate our self-concept, our worldview, and everything that lives in our consciousness, in our mind. That's the realm of our beliefs, our mores, our values, our concepts, our ego identity. All of that is really at the heart and soul of the operating system. And the key is to understand that your beliefs drive your behaviors, and your behaviors get results in the world. They get results whether you like it or not. The hard thing is when you're really committing to being a truly elite executive, it requires you to uncover and to look at the beliefs that are driving how you show up. Now, what I see with fair executives and poor leaders is that they don't look at themselves. And when they see results they don't like, they blame the world. This is the key, and it's absolutely essential to be able to understand what that internal operating system is. In the past episode, we talked a little bit about where it comes from, right? The fact that when you're 3 years old and your brain is forming 1 million neural connections a minute, you're forming a relationship and a cognitive framework that you carry for the rest of your life. And it drives you, that operating system, that personality, that identity, that ego structure drives how you show up the rest of your life if you're not intentional and purposeful. So many people want to look at the results in their life and they think that it's a product of other external influences. But the reality is we are in the driver's seat. And as long as you believe it's the external influences that create the results in your life, then you are a victim. You're tossed around on the waves of the world you're perceiving. And you don't recognize that you have the power to change that. You have a rudder and you have a propeller and you have the wheel, and you can determine where you're going and how you're getting there. It all comes back to understanding your beliefs. Now, the thing is, this plays itself completely out in leadership. And in the book, right, Lead Yourself First, I talk a lot about the idea that beliefs drive behaviors which produce results. And this really absolutely plays out in leadership in more significant ways than most people ever understand. Because there's this key concept I refer to as executive amplitude. As a leader, everything you do is completely magnified across the organization and throughout the organization, to the extent that the organization's culture becomes a mirror of your personality, of those beliefs that are driving you. 100% of the time, if I go into an organization and I see I see it in a state of disarray, in a state of confusion, in a state of scramble, and when it's in a cluster, 100% of the time, I can trace that back up. I can go to the leaders above them and to the leaders above them and to the leaders above them. And I'm ultimately going to find in the chief executive and that executive's team a state, an unsettled, unfocused state. I'm going to find a state of individuals who are in a scramble, who don't have clarity of their priorities, who take too many things on themselves, who don't delegate effectively with complete certainty. The structure, the culture of the organization becomes an extension of the mindset of the leader. Now, when I find an organization that's dialed in, that's getting things done, that's effective, where people work together cohesively, collaboratively, there's effective communication, 100% of the time, I can trace that back up. I can trace that back up to the mid-level managers, up to the senior executives, up to the founder, the CEO, the president. At that level, I will find individuals who are grounded, who are present, who are aware, who are intentional, who have clarity of the vision and align their behavior with the vision. The million-dollar question, as I've asked before, is what's your vision? Who are you becoming as a leader? Without clarity of your vision, you will be hijacked by the beliefs that you've developed during the course of your life. And again, when I talk about beliefs, I'm not talking about your political affiliation or your religious views. No, it's deeper, much more deeply ingrained than any of that. It's your belief in how you need to show up to be of value in the world, how you differentiated yourself as a 3, 5, 7, 10-year-old. A lot of this ties back to your birth order and your family of origin, because in those initial contacts with the world, in the first instant you came into the world, you had this experience, right? There's a stimulus and response experience, and you learned, I do this, I get this result. And this gets me food. This gets me attention. This gets me love. This gets me affection. And over time, much like Pavlov's dog, right? We learned instead of, well, and some of us learned helplessness, but we learned how to be in the world. Those are the beliefs I'm talking about. We learn who we need to be to get our attention needs met. We learn who we need to be to stand out, to individuate from the clan, to be special, to be different, to be unique. Right? Oldest children often play a different role than middle children, who play a different role than youngest children, who play a different role than only children. And what this really means is that we learn to play a role. These are the beliefs we're talking about. What role did you learn to play? Because when you play that role, it is the secret to your success, and those beliefs are driving that. Yet, it's also the thing that will undermine you 100% of the time. Your strengths overdone become your weakness. Well, here's the interesting thing too, is because this whole cognitive framework, this belief set, this identity that we form becomes the mask we wear in our lives. It becomes the lens that we look at the world through. Now, the thing is, when we see things that validate that personal success scripting that we've developed, those deep beliefs, when we perceive the external world as validating that releases a particular emotion. That's a positive emotion. And remember, as we talked about, as hedonistic humans, we move towards what feels good and away from what doesn't. So now if we seek validation, this is how leaders get duped. They do the thing they know is the right thing. And the hard thing is, on the leadership pathway, there is a stairway we walk up as we become leaders through the course of our lives and our career. Because at the first level, it's all about producing. It's not about leading. But when you produce well, you get elevated. And as that happens again and again and again, that elevated state, that leadership state, requires a completely different skill set than what you originally got acknowledged for. Now, recognize, asking yourself, okay, what is it that I got acknowledged for? Well, my first job, I worked at Wendy's, right? I used to flip burgers at Wendy's. And man, I was a star burger flipper. You can't believe it. I could put that burger on the grill, 2 minutes later, flip it over, 2 minutes later, put it on the bun. I was a celebrity among burger flippers, if there was such a thing. Oh my goodness. If it was an Olympic sport, I would have gone to regionals. I wasn't that good. Okay, anyway, so what happens when you become a good burger flipper at Wendy's? Oh, they put you on fries. And then when you master that, they put you on Frosty. So when you master that, they have you cleaning up and then on register. And over time, you learn all the stations. You're a producer. You'll learn all the stations. You do it well until eventually what happens? Team lead. Now, as team lead, the expectations shift on that leadership stairway. I go from a pure task orientation over to more of a relationship orientation. As that happens, the skill set required of me changes. It's not just about me getting stuff done, but getting stuff done through others. Yet, if my belief set and the way I've gotten my attention needs met early on in my life was to be a performer, to be a good boy, to get things done, to be smart, to be responsible, to be diligent, to be dutiful. If those are the things that were the secret to my success and got me the affection and the attention of my parental figures when I was a kid, I got ingrained into the neural fabric of my brain, and now I'm showing up as a leader, as an executive, playing out the same role. There's the old software that's going to undermine you. The beautiful thing is it undermines you because we're playing out software that we developed early on. That's the belief systems, right? It's the software that drives us. So now here we are decades later, still playing out the same software. This is why this podcast is called Upgrade Your Leadership, because it's all about upgrading the internal software, really. You're operating on DOS. It's time for an upgrade. Because when you upgrade the software, your thinking, your beliefs drive your behavior. So you're going to show up differently when you start thinking differently. That's the only way you're going to change your behavior is by changing your thinking. There is no other option. And recognize this, that when you want others to change and you focus on them, you're focusing the wrong direction. Real change, it's a dynamic, right? And real change, changing the human dynamics in your organization and having more influence as a leader doesn't come by focusing externally. You have to change the way you show up, the way you behave with others. And when you do that, then the results shift. If I want to change others, I have to change how I show up. If I want more accountability, I have to be more consistent in my follow-up. Over time, I train as an executive, I train the organization of what's expected, and they will fall into a new behavior pattern. However, the behavior you're seeing in your organization, the results, is absolutely because of what they're perceiving in those around them. And they've been trained, they've learned. If you want to change how you're training them, you have to show up differently, even when it's uncomfortable. And rest assured it will be, because it's going to require you to do things that run counter to some of your ingrained software patterns. That internal operating system that we're talking about upgrading, well, guess what? No, here's the thing. A lot of that operates below the system. We don't even know it's there. But when it drives us, it's in charge of us. And most people don't own their minds and they don't own their software. Their mind owns them and the software drives them. This is the powerful and difficult work of being a leader and being an executive. You have to change that relationship with that part of yourself. You put yourself in the driver's seat. You access your own potential. You access your own free will. Most humans don't have the skill set to do that. They think they are, but they're really just playing out the same pattern. It becomes a team sport, right? We're just finding loyalty and we're not thinking clearly anymore. And my God, if you want examples of this, just turn on the evening news and you'll see example after example after example of individuals who have stopped thinking and who have given up their free will to being on the team, to being an included member. This is so powerful to understand that humans are social creatures, right? And we want to be included. Now, if your organization is not producing at the highest level that you want, you might look at all the details and the data and find the facts and try to present it to people. People are much less logical than you think. Again, turn on the TV, you'll see. We have a deep inclusion need. And so even if you work hard without feedback and that's your MO in your head, my belief is, it's their job. I shouldn't have to thank them for it. So you don't. So people don't show up the way you want them to, and you're exhausted and exasperated because they're not showing up. They're not proactive. They're not accountable. They're not taking responsibility and getting stuff done. It's not on them. It's on you. Changing that belief set is absolutely essential. The hard thing is, the question is, how do you do it? And the first question, I guess, is why do so many leaders focus on changing outcomes instead of focusing on internal belief systems? And oh my goodness, our whole life is based on outcomes, right? I like the scientific method. It's 100% external. Science is beautiful, but it doesn't necessarily help us understand our experience. To do that, you have to become a scientific, approach it with a scientific mind internally, looking at and understanding the stimulus and response. When I think a certain way, it drives a behavior and that gets a result. That's science, but we tend to externalize everything. Our whole system, our education system is not built around gaining internal mastery. It's built around gaining external mastery. And I'll tell you what, after years of research, and this is the work of the book, Lead Yourself First, right? I mean, I've spent decades in internal meditation environments, studying leadership, researching, asking the most effective leaders out there what it is they're doing different. And I'll tell you what they're doing different. They've learned to turn their awareness and their attention from the external world inward. They have that self-awareness. Without self-awareness, this is the key to upgrading your internal operating system. This is the key to upgrading your software, self-awareness. Without it, you will never increase your productivity. You will do it in the short term, but if you want an elite organization, you got to look back in, recognize as a leader, the organization will start to reflect your mindset. If you have a poverty mindset, you're going to see folks running around scrambling. You're going to see people who are territorial, who defend their turf, as opposed to cross collaborating. If you're open, I've seen organizations, I love this, who offer information on a need to know basis only. And so what happens? You have a bunch of guarded individuals who don't work together because it's a need to know basis only. And then when somebody gets the information, they feel like an insider. Everybody else feels like an outsider. And so then we wonder why we have disengagement in our organizations. And it's not somebody else, and it's not your knucklehead employees. No, it's the knucklehead you. It's us. It's me. It's me in the way I'm showing up. And you must upgrade your software if you want to increase the engagement and the performance in your organization or in your life. If you want to improve the relationship with your wife or your spouse, if you want to be a better father or mother, if you want to be a better community member, a church member, if you want to be a better coach, it all starts and ends with that one saying, with your thoughts, you create the world. And those thoughts that we think in our conscious mind, our intentional, purposeful thoughts, are really, if we can step out of it and achieve that objective observer state to start to notice the patterns in your thinking, you'll see that you tend to think a certain way. You tend to have a certain a context for your thinking. And beyond that, it's like we look at the content, but we don't see the overall process. And what I mean by that is if you start to pay attention, you'll start to see that you tend to think in a way, again, it's the hard thing because that's the lens you're looking at the world through, but you think with a certain bias. Why are you always the one who's the last one there at night? Why do you believe that if you don't do it yourself, it won't be done right? Why do you believe that if you don't make everybody happy, it's a reflection on your value? Why are you the pleaser? Why are you the hardest worker? These are all ingrained patterns that you picked up. It's your internal operating system. And we're not talking about getting rid of the internal operating system. It's a secret to your success. It's changing the relationship with it, right? You need to have that relationship shift so it becomes more of a choice. So you can more easily decide to do something that runs counter to your internal operating system. Even though it's going to evoke an emotion that doesn't feel good, it's going to evoke guilt or shame or fear or discontent, but it doesn't matter. Your work is not to let your your natural tendency be driven by how you feel. Again, 99.99% of humans operate in a way that if it feels good, they move towards it. And if it doesn't, if it feels bad, they move away from it. Right. And what's that mean? Oh, I'm attached to a viewpoint. When things agree with it, it creates a positive emotion. The positive emotion then drives my behavior. Stopping that cycle of insanity is absolutely key. However, there's power in fear, right? And fear mongering is a powerful tool. Get people afraid and you'll get them to line up, but you're never going to achieve the best, because what happens when people have a state of fear? Their brain behaves differently. The caveman part of their brain, that limbic system takes over and they behave in a reactive state, but that's never going to elicit that genius brain, right? The high level thinking, the creative, critical mindset is not available when we operate and lead out of emotion, out of fear. Although, if you're not paying attention, you do it more consistently than you know, because we never learn to be aware of the emotionality within ourselves. And as I mentioned before, I learned to be aware above the neck and to just be hypercognitive and to pursue a logical argument, which is great. But underneath the surface, there's this huge iceberg. I'm aware of this little bit on the top, but underneath is this deeply ingrained logic and emotionality that truly drives how I show up if I don't have awareness. Awareness is the key, gaining awareness. And this is why most leaders look at the external reality and they focus so singularly on that, and they don't realize that in doing that, sometimes they shoot themselves in the foot. Sometimes you go 180 degrees from the actual result you want. How does that happen? Well, you look at the numbers. I'm just factual. I'm urgency driven. I get things done. I'm accountable. So I hold up the spreadsheet and I drive people towards it, but I never say good morning to them on Monday morning, so they feel expendable. And I don't ask their opinion about things. I tell them more than I ask them, so they feel like their voice doesn't matter. And I don't have clarity of the vision that I communicate effectively to them, so they have no idea where we're going, how their job makes a difference, how they make a difference, how they're special and part of this team. Because in my mind, that's your job. Just do it, and that's great. But what you're doing is creating assembly line factory workers who do the basic minimum, not people who bring their heavy hitting creative power to the game. If you want an elite organization, you must upgrade your operating system. Now, so there's some practical steps you can take to reprogram these beliefs. And again, number one is having a self-awareness practice. How do you gain self-awareness? What do you do that that helps you practice and cultivate that internal mental muscle? Recognize it is a mental muscle. You go to the gym and work out and you become more physically fit. How do you become mentally fit? If you're stressed, you're not self-aware. If you're continually caught in future thinking and driving anxiety for yourself about what might happen next, or you're looking back in your past thinking, reflecting on what did happen and the emotion that comes with that, right? The anxiety looking forward, the guilt, the shame, the regret backward, the anger that we create for ourselves. Most humans are stuck in the future and in the past or somewhere else, but not here now. So remember, if you want to be self-aware, you have to practice presence. The two of them are two sides of a coin. What do you do to practice presence? How can you do that? You know, in some ways, it's completely simple, but difficult. Simple is bringing your attention back to this moment right here, right now. When you're doing your daily chores, how often is it that you let your mind go somewhere else, or you just want to get them over with? I love the practice. As the Buddhists used to say, chop wood, carry water, right? And what does that mean? It means this: when you're washing your dishes, washing the pots and pans, it's not a chore. It's a moment to practice cultivating presence and to feel the warm water on your hands as you're scrubbing the pan, and to bring your attention completely into this moment right here, right now. Because doing that, you short circuit all those pathways, all that neuro static in your brain, all those patterns of belief that you cultivated. You short circuit those, you put those down. And in putting them down, they lose their strength over you. Again, you're never going to lose the strengths. You're never going to stop doing well what you do well. It goes back to changing that relationship with that part of yourself, to be the objective observer, to see, oh, here it is again. Now I'm making the same kind of decision again, even if it doesn't get the result I want. I need to back up. I need to practice pausing, breathing, being present in this moment. When you do work out, when you're in the weight room, you're doing your bench press, is your mind spinning, or are you intensely in this moment? The more you can practice coming back to the moment, right here, right now, sometimes just taking a deep breath. And this absolutely will serve you when you're under the gun, when you're triggered, when you're frustrated, and you begin to react out of emotion in the moment, right? And your brain changes in that moment, and you lose your focus in that moment, and you start to get short or condescending or curt, or you raise your voice or you shut down. All of those are not you being the best version of yourself. And when we talk about upgrading your leadership system, that internal software, it's about aligning with and allowing you to access your potential at a deeper level. So the question is, who's in charge of you? Your personality, your patterns, or your potential? It takes work. Make a commitment. Make a commitment today to lead yourself first, to be curious about how you form your beliefs, and to recognize that the beliefs in your head, the things that will leave you exasperated and exhausted with other people because they don't make sense and they're idiots, recognize those are just beliefs in your head, and ask yourself, where'd these beliefs come from? Where did I learn to think this way? How is it helping me? How is it getting in the way? My experience is being right, which is something I'm good at. I'm good at being right. Doesn't always get me what I want. Ask my wife. Ask people I work with when I'm incensed and I feel like I'm right. How can they not get it? What are they, an idiot? And when that's my tone of voice and that's in my mind and I'm coming off that way, I am shutting people off. They're reacting to me. And then it's a cycle that perpetuates itself. Here's the thing to wake up to. And this whole notion of upgrading your leadership and upgrading your leadership and becoming aware of and mastering your internal operating system, it's absolutely about stepping into your potential as a leader and as a human on earth, shedding the patterns and being the most elite version of yourself, to lead up in your organization, to lead across, to lead down, to show up with that state of grace, with that state of presence, with that state of open-heartedness, not to let people get away with things, not to let them do what they want to do. No. But to show up in a way with true conviction and vulnerability, because that is the way you bring out the best in other people. You know, leadership, the old school of leadership was never let them know you, right? It was a blank slate. You show up as a blank slate. Well, that's just the easy way out. If you don't let people know you, then it's easy to have the hard discussion with them. It's easy to fire people if you don't know them. It's impersonal. It's really tough to have hard conversations when you have a personal relationship with folks. But that's your job as a leader. And that's what makes good leaders great. Their ability to do that, to be caring, but to hold people to a higher standard. And when you do that, when you operate, when you increase or improve your operating system, when you upgrade it intentionally and become aware of how your beliefs are driving the results, put yourself in the driver's seat. Your assignment is to pay attention to the results in your life. Pay attention to the areas where you're frustrated, where you're not getting the results that you want as a leader and in all of the roles that you play, and recognize that 100% of it comes back to you. When you take 100% fierce ownership and accountability and responsibility for the results in your life, it's liberating. Then you realize, then you start to see, they're going to open the door to recognize that it all comes back to how you think, your beliefs. Your beliefs drive your behaviors to get results. You want different results? Change your beliefs. Change your thinking. Upgrade your self-concept. Notice how your attachment to your beliefs will create suffering and pain for you. When you know you're right and you're frustrated, you're the one who's frustrated, nobody else. But yet now you're moving through the world carrying this frustration, and you don't have to. It's time to put the load down. It's time to put down all the burden you're carrying. Step intensely into the present moment, right here and right now. In this moment, beyond words, not to fill your mind with content, but just to be present, right here, right now. And from that place of deep presence, to open your awareness, to become aware of yourself mentally, to notice the content, to quiet it, to become aware of yourself emotionally, to feel it physiologically in your body, to feel the adrenaline rush, to feel the hit of cortisol when you're stressed out and frustrated. Notice your behavior. Notice your eye rolls. Notice your reactivity. Notice when your energy is high and when it's low. When you become a student of yourself and stop personalizing the world around you, you are truly in the position to walk down the conscious leadership pathway and to lead yourself first. Do check out the book, because it is the playbook for you to increase your power as a leader. Lead yourself first to upgrade your leadership. Here's to great success. Pay attention, be present, be aware, be intentional. Hey, thanks for joining us on today's Leadership Upgrade podcast. Now, if you want to continue to challenge your ideas about leadership while increasing your influence, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share this episode with someone you know who wants to become a more inspired executive. If you're ready to take the next major step in upgrading your leadership, don't forget to grab a copy of Lead Yourself First, the High Achiever's Guide to Upgrade Your Leadership, available now. Just go to Upgrade Your Leadership now to secure your copy of the book, and we have additional resources available for those who are truly committed to becoming better. So download the workbook, get the book, and put yourself on a path to become the best version of yourself as a leader. Remember, before you can truly lead others, you must first learn to lead yourself. See you on the next episode. For now, this is Dr. Kevin wishing you well.